Hi, I'm Alex Howard, and welcome to this week's episode of In Therapy, where we follow real-life people on their therapeutic journeys. And in this week's episode, we're exploring how the therapeutic journey never really ends as we come to the last of Beverly's sessions, and ultimately how self-development is a lifelong process. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, click the bell icon to be notified as new episodes are released, and do follow my Instagram at Alex Howard Therapy for daily inspiration and support. This week, we're catching up with Beverly. Beverly's sessions here on In Therapy are coming to a close, and in between sessions, she expressed to me her feelings of frustration around this. I'm keen to find out how she's feeling now and to have an honest conversation about the progress she's made and the work still to do.
Well, Bev, it's lovely to see you. How have you been doing since last time?
Oh, it's been quite tumultuous, I suppose is the word. It seemed, because obviously it's been quite a while, so there's a lot going on. And I think I'm in today with a real mixture of emotions because I know this is the last filming session, so that feels, it's lots of things. It feels quite sudden because I think when I spoke to you, I felt like I hadn't been given enough warning of it coming to an end. Yeah. And that felt, at first, I kind of, because I could understand it in my head, I could see exactly why you were doing it. And I knew it was coming at some point. So rationally, it felt okay. Yeah, completely understand that. My feelings, emotions and heart, I realised a day or so later was saying something completely different. Yeah. And I realised I was sad, upset, angry to the point, I think, as I said to you when we spoke on the phone, of being fucking furious. Yeah.
And I was really glad that you felt you could be honest about how you felt.
And terribly disappointed. So there was a whole mixture of stuff to kind of try and deal with. So it was helpful talking to you. And I think part and parcel has been me working with that. And I realised that because it felt, and again, I know this isn't logical, but this is how it felt, that I felt sort of, there was an element of rejection. I felt rejected and abandoned and like I'd been dropped off the end of a cliff and all of those things.
Yes.
And I realised that fed into not exactly rejection by my father, but lack of support by my father because he just couldn't really compete against my mum or whatever you want to say. Rejection by two husbands. You know, so there was an element of our sessions are coming to a close, and actually I'm sure I am. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and this is what I've been kind of toying with, that I'm no bloody further forward than I was. And I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just a bit like
what's the fucking point?
Yeah. I did get a bit like that. I just thought, so I've really, since I've been back, well, I did a retreat, it was just a couple of days thing, which was helpful. And I finally, because I was so angry, I couldn't even listen to your voice when I came back. It was a bit like, no, forget it, not listening. Like I couldn't listen because normally I do, one of your meditations a day, and I was going to do the modules, and I couldn't do any of that at all. Anyway, I kind of worked through a lot of the feelings of rejection, which as I say, I knew were coming from sort of men in general, and worked through quite a bit of that anger, and sort of had a look back at what I had actually done and realised that I was so disappointed because there was this expectation from the beginning that I'd be fixed.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yes. I mean, I don't think it was almost an unconscious, but it's this hope, isn't it? There's something new coming along. It's a wonderful opportunity. And at the end of it, it's all going to be sorted. And of course, that's unrealistic. And then what I also realized is I was becoming my idealized self, probably, in that, because I was going to
it's
be
almost
this
like you would do
perfect
this
person.
process, and through that you would become this person that you need to be, to be lovable, to be happy, to be all,
not to be on my own, not to, and I mean, that's just, it's a pipe dream. It's ridiculous. So it was kind of stepping back from that and thinking, well, actually, I've got all these tools that I can use that I didn't have before, to help me when things are getting difficult, because things will get difficult, because that's the nature of life.
Yeah, the real goal of this work is not that we fix your life, it's that you feel more equipped to meet the challenges of life.
Yeah. And I think, I think, it again, that can vary. I can have a good day when I think, I can, conquer anything, I can sort this out. And then I can have a crap day when I can't, I'm hopeless again. And I think, again, I just need to, something about accepting that and accepting how I am. And not wanting to be something I'm not, I suppose. Being happy with who I am. And because I think, as you reminded me, I came up with this, I feel like I've had a half life. Well, if a half life is what it is, then I've got to embrace that half life. And few people, I guess, have the life that they would have liked or wanted.
But I think it's also what are you comparing your life against?
Yes.
Right? Like if the ideal is happily married from early in life, perfect children, perfect career, perfect health, great friendships, perfect home, then we all live 5% of a life in a sense.
Yes.
So I think a lot of it is relative. I want to spend some time in a little bit exploring the progress that you've made and the areas that you feel haven't progressed the way you'd like them to. But I also just want to speak to a little bit about the relationship between you and I, and the fact that I'm really glad that you reached out to me after our last session and that you were able to be emotionally truthful and honest with me in the conversation that we had. And I really respect the fact that you were able to go, I feel angry and I feel rageful and I feel hurt and I feel this. And I also recognize that what's happening is it's triggering my history with my father, it's triggering my history with relationships, because I think for me, that in of itself is a real sign of emotional maturity and a sign of progress, that you can own the emotional truth of how you feel, but you can also recognize what's true to our relationship and what's projected onto our relationship. And as I said to you when I spoke to you, that, this is a learning, evolving process for us, and we don't have it all figured out. And as I said to you when we spoke, that I think we could have framed some things better than we did. And I think that we, in a sense, I'm sat here with two hats on, because I'm sat here ultimately to support and help you, but I'm also sat here from a production point of view in terms of the series, which is why I'm glad that we have a plan to continue support beyond the filming. So with the kind of therapy hat on, that it's important to me that you have the holding and support that you have. But I just wanted to take a little bit of space, that because we had that conversation and then there's then the kind of time to process and metabolize that. And it sounds like your journey with that has continued since then. How do you feel now in this moment with you and I, and how you feel about what's been coming up?
What, moving forward, do you mean, or today, or?
Both.
I think that, there is a sadness that it's come to an end, but like any loss. And I think that's important for me to recognise. I would like to think, because I think just for me, it would be good, as I think, again, I said to you, to have a couple of sessions with you, just to kind of feel that it's more wrapped up.
Yeah, which we're definitely going to do.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, that's a given.
That's lovely to know.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's what I've got to watch out for. I think there is this disappointment, and it's coming from my inner critic. I know that I think I have this thing, and that's a bit of an ego thing, that I wanted to be this person on YouTube that would help other people, and I'd have a beginning, a middle, and an end to all of it. So at the end, I could say, oh yeah, this has happened in my life, and this has happened, and it's all sorted out, and I'm fixed now. There was kind of, it goes back to that dream. So there's a disappointment that doesn't feel like that. And I've got to watch, because there's a definite inner critic voice coming and saying, well, of course you haven't. Of course you can't do that. You haven't got what it takes.
But you see, what's interesting is, it sounds like you have, or at least your inner critic has, a clear idea of the person it thinks you should be at the end of this process.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that's based upon reality. And I'm not sure, and that's certainly,
it's not.
And it's certainly not my expectation of where you should be. Because
because that was the other thing. I think there was this feeling that I'd let you down.
Oh, really?
Yes. There was very much that I've let everybody else down. And again, that's historical, because, I could never be what my mum wanted me to be, not really. And so I always felt I'd let her down. I always used to feel I'd let patients down. It's just
it's a pattern that you're familiar with that then plays out in this scenario. Because from my point of view, one of my clear intentions with the series is to show the real story of the therapeutic process. In fact, I was describing it to someone in an interview recently, to show the clumsiness of the therapeutic journey. And what I meant by that is that
that's a good word for it.
There isn't a neat beginning, a middle, and an end. And having done this job, it's 20 years now that I've been doing this job, that the way that people come to therapy is often not neat and tidy. The way people are in therapy is often not neat and tidy, and how people finish is often not neat and tidy. And sometimes people finish in a very common scenario that happens therapeutically, and you'll remember this, I'm sure, from your career as well, is that someone will get the wrong time or miss an appointment, or there will be a scheduling issue, and then you just won't hear from that person again, or you won't hear from them for a year or 2 years, and then there'll be an instigator, and that person will come back in again. And there's lots of ways that things don't have neat and tidy endings. And it's, for me, what's really important is when there are endings, that ending has a real openness and it has an honesty. And the ending is in the spirit of the relationship as it's been from the beginning. So it's one thing to have an ending where it just finishes and we don't talk about it. Well, for me, that would be an insult to the work that you've done and the work that we've done, which is why it's really important that all the work that we've been doing around encouraging you to have your emotions, explore your relationship with your emotions, this is another opportunity to work with that. And it's not, as I said to you when we spoke on the phone, it's not an end of support, and it's not an end of us having a relationship. It's an end of a filming process, because of that has a different sort of set of parameters in a sense that feed into that. So I guess what's really important in this moment is, as we talk about it, and as we talk about it in a way that has the real invitation to have the feelings that you have about it. What do you feel? So, because I understand that you rationally understand what I'm saying, and I don't hear you saying that you think on a rational level anything that's happening is wrong or bad, because there's some bits I think could have been better managed, and we've got a plan that I think you feel on a rational level feel is fair and sensible. But that isn't necessarily the same as that emotional place which feels hurt and feels rejected and feels angry.
So sitting here right now, there's a part of me that feels, is it hurt? No, difficult to get a handle on. I think it's just a feeling of sadness. I think that's the overriding emotion that I'm sitting with. Don't feel I have been angry, but I don't feel I'm angry anymore. I think there is that almost wishing there could be a few more positives, or it could be a bit more sorted out. So there's that frustration more than anger of wishing it could be different. But there's just a hurt in my heart because it's over, it's ended. Yeah, it's just the sadness of an ending. I know I'm going to see you again. I don't know if I'll see Oliver again.
He'll be here when you come in.
Oh, well, that's all right then. So that's the overriding feeling I've got at the moment. Oh, my heart just feels a bit sore. I think that's the best.
Is that feel okay?
Yeah, it feels okay. I've gone into enough soreness, enough pain that I can handle this now. And there's part of me that wants to, can't yet, but is hoping in time I'll be able to look back and pick up the sort of, the joy, the good things, the positives that's come out of it. I've not quite got a handle on all of that yet.
Well, I want to spend a little bit of time exploring that.
Yeah.
Because I think what can happen is, in the place of feeling hurt, angry, rejected, that there's a pushing away that happens.
Yes.
But also what happens is your inner critic then is focusing on all the things that are not the way that you want them to be.
Yes.
And that sort of pushes out the things that are different.
And that goes back to one of the modules about the lens with which we look at life. And I can look at life, if I'm not careful, through that very much. Nobody cares about me. I'm abandoned. I'm lonely. I'm on my own. I can really get into that victim lens, if you like, whatever you want to call it. I'm quite capable of really tunneling down a hole in that. And I'm trying very hard not to recognise when I'm doing that and to come out of it and try and flip it and look at things the other way.
Well, I think what you're speaking to is actually really important. It's the balance between letting yourself have your feelings, letting yourself have feelings of anger, of hurt, of sadness, of rage, but not letting those feelings take you into a mindset where that's the place from which you assess the progress that you've made, or you assess where you're at in your life.
Yes.
So it's being allowed to feel the feelings and have the feelings, but not letting the feelings colour your ultimate perception in terms of what's true.
Yes. Yes. That's absolutely right.
So, go on.
The other thing, just to finish about, that I realised that I find, because I'm so used to feelings of sadness, pain, all of that, I find feelings of joy, happiness, positivity very hard to actually enjoy, take on board, accept, whatever. And I noticed, I can't remember the situation now, but I did write it down because I felt this is important. I was feeling joyful about something, and I instantly, just caught myself doing it, wanted a drink. And I thought, you're trying to, a bit like I want to drink if I'm miserable.
Like state changing.
Yeah, so I want to get rid of this feeling because it feels it feels two things. It feels uncomfortable and it feels not deserved. And I thought, whoa, that is really... And then try not to beat myself up, feeling, God, you've been like this all your life. No wonder you've been so miserable. Then try not to get into that inner critic that's starting to come in then when you have that realisation, and just think, well, actually, try and be curious about it rather than analysing it. And that's another thing I find really difficult. But anyway, well, isn't that interesting in a way, that you feel joyful and you're feeling happy, but you're squashing it?
It's a really great insight. And it's true that if we suppress our hurt and our sadness, our tendency will also be to suppress our joy and our happiness. That, in a sense, that's what antidepressants do. They will tend to squash your emotional range. And that, of course, that can have a place if someone's going very low, but it'll also tend to squash someone's ability to feel joy and happiness. And the same can happen as a psycho-emotional defense, that to protect ourselves from going outside of the equilibrium, because the fear is, if I really let myself have the joy and the happiness, then I might lose it. And that'll be so painful that it's better not to have it too much in the first place.
And again, I think that was something that was a little bit drummed into me as a child. Pride comes before a fall. I remember that a lot from my mum. So if you were happy about something, you'd achieve something. You get you get damped down for it.
Yeah. So let's look a little bit at what you have achieved, the progress you have made. I've obviously got plenty of ideas, but I'm interested to hear a little bit from you. Like, if you were to summarize some of the things that you feel have been either, really transformed or have been touched or been impacted by the process that we've been going through, what would you say?
I would say that I have a better ability to look at my feelings and to try, and this is still a work in progress, not to analyse, rationalise. Because I can, for me to try and sit in the pain can be difficult. And then what I can do is overdo it. So I think it's a practice, isn't it? Like you've said, I'm better with that now. It's far from perfect, but I'm better. And I've been in some very dark places and managed to hold myself through those. So I think I'm kinder to myself now than I was with those, and more. And I think I'm getting more into my head about this need for, the feeling safe, the love of myself, which is difficult, but again, it's a work in progress, and the boundaries for myself. So I think they're better than they were. I think I'm better in boundaries with other people, or in recognising when I'm perhaps damaging myself at the expense of somebody else. Again, that's a work in progress.
Yeah, particularly what comes to my mind on that is the couple of examples that you gave in one of our sessions around the choice of wine and capitulating to the person, or leaving the theatre early because someone else wants to.
Yes.
But I think the awareness about that, and my sense is that also the more that you're integrating your power, as in your anger, your rage, your frustration, that also becomes part of your power to go, actually, no.
Yeah.
I'm red and I want red.
Yes. And I was just going to say about the red, I think she's still lurking somewhere around. So that I feel like that is somewhere that would be good for me to, I'm not sure how, but to work on that. But as you say, maybe getting in touch with my anger. And actually, because I've always been frightened of anger, and it's looking at anger in a different way as an energy form, if you like, rather than just as a hitting out or a throwing or a stamping or breaking something, which is usually what I've done.
Well, in a sense, it's allowing and embodying the energy of the anger without acting out the impulse of the anger.
Yes. Yeah. So I've kind of got, again, a bit more of a handle on that. I'm aware, and again, it's also a work in progress. I need another few lifetimes to sort all this lot out. Of when I'm being my idealized self or my collapsed self, and trying to be my authentic self. And sometimes I'm not even sure of who, what, where she is. But there's perhaps more of an idea now than I had before. And there's still crossover with authenticity and idealization, and I know that. But at least there's an awareness that the two are different, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think even where you find yourself at the moment is a really good example of that, right? Like the awareness of this idealized self that's going to be this finished, sorted, happy person that has done therapy, finished with that, and is like, the shining light for others of the potential for that, as opposed to the recognition that the authentic self is that we're all on a journey that always goes on and continues. Like, it was interesting for me writing my first book 20 years ago, which was an autobiographical book about my journey with ME, chronic fatigue syndrome.
Yeah.
And when you write a book, there was a happy ending to that story. And when you write a book, you write the end to a story. And then the book goes out and sort of years pass. But then, of course, your life continues and your journeys continue. And then meeting people or, receiving letters and emails from people that are relating to the person that wrote the last paragraph in that book. Like, that was like the end point of the story. And I struggled with that for quite a few years because I was like, but I've still got all these, I was like 22, I was like all kinds of shit sorted out.
Yeah.
And it's like people have this idea of, in a sense, this projected idealized self. Right, exactly. Projected idealized self that a little bit like when we watch films or we read read novels or whatever, that they have neat and tidy endings. But the reality of life is I still have issues. You still have issues. We all have issues. Life is by definition often difficult.
Yeah.
But some people have more difficult circumstances in their lives. But it's not about beginning, middle, and end. It's about having better tools and better resources to respond in more skillful and more elegant ways to the challenges that we meet in life. Yeah. And as we meet new challenges, sometimes we need new tools as well, or tools that we've learned, we realize there's different applications of those tools. And so I think that work that we did a bit earlier in our time together around who is this idealized self of Beverly who has been through and completed this process, as opposed to what is the authentic truth, because I know that a lot of people have been impacted by your story. I know that by the comments that are on the videos. I know that by things that people say. And you're being authentic in this moment, in this kind of ending chapter of the filming process, is you continuing to deliver that lesson to people around it's not about neat and tidy, it's about honesty and authenticity.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And it's, I think about things on a personal level. I hate books that don't have a proper ending. I hate films that I like everything to be neat and tidy. And, I have this great thing about neat and tidiness. So there's like this craving for something that's unrealistic. So I am kind of aware of that. And yet, there's a reading I love by somebody called Louise Hay, who's
Well, my books are published by Hay House.
Oh, right, okay. So of course you're very familiar. But there's a wonderful reading that about time and sort of what's important. And she says, we always come in the middle of a movie and we go in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's always resonated with me, because actually that's, there never is a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of quite profound in a way.
How does it feel to recognize that in this moment, particularly in the context of your inner critic saying you haven't become this person you need to be?
Oh, I can just fuck off.
Good.
Just saying it, actually, it's a real mix. It sort of makes my heart, again, feel a mixture of joy and sadness, because it's the word I'm looking for. It's sort of heartfelt words, really, that have had a meaning to me.
Yes.
And it's I suppose it's that there is a knowing within me that is true. There's also part of me that doesn't want to believe it's like that, because, still waiting for the white knight on the charger to whisk me away to happier times. That sort of dream that I think so many little girls have. Yeah.
But of course, part of what you are learning and realizing is that you are the white knight.
Yeah. There was a funny time, actually, just thinking, it just made me think about that. I was in Waitrose doing some food shopping, and I was just feeling a bit wistful. I seemed to be surrounded by couples, and I thought, it would be nice if I had someone to look after me. And then another voice came in and said, Beverly, you're not doing a bad job looking after yourself. and it's okay.
Mm.
You know, you're probably in one of the best supermarkets in the country. Realistically, you're not a food bank.
Yeah.
Okay, you can buy everything, but you've enough money to buy what you want. And you've enough knowledge, ability, and like doing it to cook nice food for yourself. How lucky are you, really?
Yeah.
And it just came from sort of nowhere, walking down the vegetable aisle at Waitrose.
Well, it comes back to the point that you made earlier around what do you focus on?
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Do you focus on what you don't have?
Yeah.
Or do you focus on what you do have?
Yeah.
And I think it's always relative. You know, it's like you can look at people that have things that you don't have that you would like and feel like your life is missing and your life is deficient in that. But then there's many, many people that would look at the life that you have and see all the things that you have that they don't have. But then there are people that can look at that, there's always someone, apart from one person at the top and one person at the bottom, there's always someone richer and there's always someone poorer. There's always someone that's thinner. There's always someone that's fatter. There's always someone that's got, more people in their life and people that have got less. So, whatever the things that someone values to be important, of course, we all have different idealized selves and different things that we think to be important. But really, much of our level of contentment and happiness in our life is simply down to which way we're looking. Are we looking at the things that other people have that we don't have, or are we looking at the things that we have that other people don't have? And a lot of that is down to a choice. It's down to a focus.
Yeah. So I think I've got that a bit more, still a bit out of kilter, but it's not as much out of kilter as it was today, anyway.
Yeah. Well, also, I want to reflect back some things that I think you've done really. I think you've done lots of great work in the time that we've had, but I think particularly the work around your emotions and your relationship with your emotions. I feel like there's been a real shift in terms of your openness and your curiosity towards, and also your holding of your feelings and emotions. I think that's something that's really changed. I think your awareness around some of the impacts of childhood, and particularly your relationship with your mother, I think that has also been important. I think your recognition of your self-worth and the need to have boundaries, and a sense to stand up and advocate for yourself around people in your life that might not always be as attentive toward you as you deserve them to be. I think that's also something that has really been developing and evolving. And I think your sincerity of commitment to the process of doing homework and listening to your experience in the process of doing that. And I think particularly, you're learning and getting much more skillful at knowing what you need. And what I mean by that is, earlier in our work, I think there was a sense of like, well, I've got the homework, I've just got to go and do it. And then I think as things evolved, that you were more able to go, actually, I don't need to do the homework right now. I need to tell the homework to fuck off and actually listen to what I need in this moment. But then to go, actually, no, now is the time to do it. And so your relationship to yourself and being softer and more responsive and more attentive to yourself is something that I particularly think has changed and evolved. And I think that a part of that has been becoming free from the structure of how your mum had related to you, which was that it was about what she wanted and what you needed was unimportant. And I think that was a strong structure in you, which then was playing out in how you were relating to yourself. And I think that particularly is something that has been really changing.
Yeah, that feels a bit sort of embryonic at the minute, but I think it's good that you verbalise that, because I think that's something that I've been feeling, but I can't actually put it into words so much. But yes, I think her voice is becoming quieter.
Yes.
I think that it's still there, and I still have times when I notice it will creep in. or I'll feel sorry about something that I did or didn't do for her that will come in when I'm trying to do something for myself. It's like sort of trying to sidestep me almost. And it's catching those moments and thinking, no, this is about you. This is your life. This is so yes, I think that is the case.
And even that act of listening to what you want, like just that orienting away from the noise and the demands and this and that happening to actually listen and go, what do I actually need? What do I actually want right now? How does it feel to hear me feedback what I see that's different?
It feels really nice, actually. It feels really positive. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of heartwarming. I feel that, I've done all right.
You've done more than all right. I think you've done great. And I think it's a work in progress. Like we're all a work in progress. Let's talk a little bit about the areas that you still really want to work on. Like the pieces that you either feel a strong sense of incompleteness or the pieces that you feel are just not, that feel important that are not there. What would you say about those?
I think there's two main things. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. My feelings of self-worth, or my feelings, maybe not so much self-worth, or confidence about doing stuff. Was brought home to me quite a bit with the walking, I think, because I always feel I can't do it. Everybody else can do it better than me.
Then you do 50 miles in a week.
Yeah. And then, and one of the leaders, actually strange, he's been on the 3 holidays I've done with HF. He's been on all of them. Lovely guy. Sort of typical brash northerner. And the first time he dissuaded me from going on the difficult walk. I think he sort of took one look at me and thought, she'll never make it to the top of that. And I got a bit of courage from that because, in fact, it was Carol that did it, the girl that I met there said, come on, we can do this, we'll do it together kind of thing, which was so lovely. And we did it. And I remember quite distinctly walking up this hill, and I was only a little bit behind him. He was a big, tall, strong guy. And he looked around and he said, oh, it's you. Like, he never thought, he thought I'd be at the back, probably. So that was kind of that. And then he was just on holiday with his partner, the second holiday went on. And then on the third holiday, again, I was thinking about doing the hard walk, which I hadn't done all week. It was next to last day because of my hip and various other things. It was a bit sore, not bad. And he said, yeah, you'll do it. He said, you need a bit more confidence in yourself. You can do more than you think you can do. And I'm kind of trying to sort of, these comments that if I get them, I'm trying to sort of write them down and almost bottle them. I know I have to give it to myself, but it's just nice sometimes to have that affirmation because I know I don't. Yeah. I know I will always think, and in fact, there was another interesting thing because I always think I'm crap with technology. My friend Carol does beautiful photographs, and I never think I can. And I wanted to change my screensaver on my phone, and I was looking back through the photographs because she sends me them, and I saw this photograph, and I thought that looks like a nice one. I'll put that on. I thought it would be one of Carol's. Anyway, it wasn't one of Carol's. It was one of mine. And I thought, I took that photograph. But again, it's just an example that I suppose it's self-value. I don't have, I'm scared, I think, of having that self-value. And
what do you fear would happen if you really embraced that value?
That I'd put myself on a pedestal and then the only way for it to work is I get knocked off.
So it's kind of like thinking about positive emotions, that if you let yourself feel it too much, that you'll then be knocked down.
And again, the inner critical comes, who do you think you are?
And who's going to knock you off?
Well, my whole world, everybody else, aren't they? They're going to see through me. It's a bit like Emperor's New Clothes. No, she's not really that good. She's boasted and she can't do it now.
And how much is that your reality in life now versus the story that your mum told you?
It's probably about 50-50, I suppose. It's about evens, I think. I don't know. It's difficult to kind of quantify
Because
there's both things playing.
Yeah. Because what I'm hearing you say is that people around you are saying, go for it.
Yes.
But your mum's voice inside of you is saying, don't go for it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because it appears to me that actually the message that you have in your life is you can do more than you realize.
Yes.
You're more powerful, you're more capable, you're physically stronger, but also you're mentally and emotionally stronger than you realize. Does that?
Yeah. I think, is everybody like that?
I'm sure not everyone's like that.
No, but there are. I'm trying to listen to the voices that are.
Yes.
So I noticed that's a bit of a shift because I'm aware that's my self-worth, self-value is not what it could be. And it again, because I suppose when I was working, I rooted out, well, we attract what we believe, don't we? And certainly from bosses, I've very rarely got, I think I can think of 3 positive comments in 40 years.
You had some really bad bosses.
I did. I did. I mean, I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
But, I didn't.
But in a sense, also probably because those bosses were familiar to your internal dialogue, you wouldn't have identified them as being bad bosses. Whereas perhaps you knowing what you know now, after 6 months in a job would have been, this is a really toxic environment. I'm not valued. I'm not treated, by the people that I work for with the level of respect and care that I deserve. I'm out of here.
Yeah. I went through really certain amount of sort of abuse almost. Well, but that's what I've been, as we've said, that's what I've been
familiar.
used to. That was what I was comfortable with, like a pair of old slippers, really.
Yeah. So what would it mean going forwards, you approaching life from the perspective of, I can do more than I think I can, that I'm capable of more than I realize?
I suppose it'd be quite exciting, really. And might sort of propel me into doing more new things that, because I think there was this whole thing about the Art Society. I did join the Art Society, but I went to one lecture met somebody who was quite friendly, and then the second and third ones, but it felt really unfriendly, really uncomfortable environment to be in, and I've missed the last 2. But then what I'm trying to do again is not beat myself up about it and think, maybe the Art Society isn't for me.
Right.
Doesn't mean, because what I would have done in the past is thought, well, that's it now, I'm not joining anything else. Because,
you'd have made it about you being the problem as opposed to it just isn't the right thing.
Yeah. So, but I think I've joined for the whole year. So there's a lecture every month. I will go again. But so I'm trying to think, no, that doesn't mean that. It just means maybe you need to try something else. So that's kind of, I'm trying to work on that, but I'm aware it's tricky. The other area that I think need to work on, and again, I've been doing quite a bit of work going into the pain of that, is the pain of loneliness and being on my own. And sometimes being on my own is fine. And sometimes it's really, really difficult. So that feels at the minute quite hard. And then it was interesting because I thought my family hadn't been in contact with me, particularly my nephew. And I thought, look, Bev, you're the grown-up in this. I mean, I know he's 40, but, I'm still sort of the adult in the sense, if you like.
The dynamic at least,
I'm his auntie. I thought, and I thought, look, it's been a month. Just send him a text. Just say, he doesn't, because I know he's very busy. He doesn't have to get back to you. You just want him to know that you care about him and you're thinking of him. And I couldn't find his WhatsApp messages. For some reason, known only to God and I don't know what else, I archived him. So, but he sent me 3 texts saying, you're not replying to my texts and I don't know what's happened. I hope you're all right. I've heard about Bernie, this is my neighbour, and, I'm just hoping you're okay.
Well, that's very sweet, yeah.
So I just, how I've archived it, I don't know. But I just thought, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, so again, that's that lens. So, and in fact, I'd archived a couple of other people that I thought, well, they're not getting in touch with me. How these things can happen. And that's, so the loneliness and the emptiness. That's just something I suppose I just have to be with and work with as best I can.
And also to recognize there is support. There is love that's there, that's in your life, but it's making sure that you're not pushing it away or you're not shutting down and not letting it in.
Yeah.
That ultimately you are an active participant in building that connection and that relationship with those people. Mm-hmm. And when you need help and support, being brave enough to ask for it.
Yeah.
Going back to the previous point, you can do more than you realize. So in that moment where you need support, you think, oh, I couldn't possibly ask out because they might not have time or they might be to go, no, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do more than I realize I can do.
I suppose
I can climb mountains even though I'm told I can't.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
How does that feel?
That's making me feel quite emotional for some reason. I don't know. I suppose it's what is it about? I think that's another thing I find difficult. It's accepting that I am loved and people do care about me and I'm worthy of that love. That's another thing that's tied up all with the same stuff, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's another thing I find very difficult to believe, take on board, whatever.
Well, in a sense, it's the same work you're doing with yourself of you being more curious and softer and more loving with yourself, but also then allowing that to come from other people.
Yeah, I think I find that quite hard. Well, I do. There's no point saying I think I do.
Yeah, but that's a piece for you to keep working with.
Yeah, I think that is actually. Yeah.
With the remembering that you can do hard things.
Yeah, because I will tend to belittle what I've done sometimes.
Yeah, again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about it's very easy to focus on what's missing or to focus on what you can't do or what you haven't done, and then to use that as the evidence that you can't do things you want to do in the future.
Yeah.
As opposed to going, well, actually, I've done this and I did this and that person said I couldn't do this and I did it anyway. That actually that then becomes the confidence where you go, well, this thing feels scary and it feels hard, but look at all the other hard things that I've done.
Yeah.
And if I know I can do hard things, then I can take the risk to do this hard thing. And the deal with hard things is often they're only hard at the start.
Yeah. And also with things that I'm scared of, it's usually the run-up that's scary. And then once I get into it, it's, the fear goes, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. As soon as we take the leap forward, by definition of taking the leap, we've already beaten the fear. It's just that taking that first leap is the hard bit. It's just like doing that initial thing. Yeah. And I have, I know I have done stuff where I've taken that initial step. I wouldn't be sitting here. Yeah. So we've obviously got a couple more sessions coming up that we're going to do off camera. But in this moment now, do you have any questions? Anything else that you wanted to touch on?
There's nothing I can think of. I will do the minute I get on the tube going home.
Well, you can email me. That's fine.
Yeah. What's my homework?
Well, your homework is my
for the rest of my life.
for the rest of your life. My passing homework to you is to remember that you can do hard things.
Okay.
And when people tell you can't climb mountains, you just go and show them, metaphorically and literally.
Yeah.
And how you feel about where you are is largely down to how you choose to interpret the data in front of you.
Yeah, yes.
And if you do that unconsciously, it's going to be driven by the old patterns.
Yeah.
And if you do that consciously, you're changing the programming.
Okay, that's a good thing to remember. Okay, so I have to remember that I can do hard things and I have to remember how I see the world. that I will be how I see the world on a day-to-day basis.
And hard things are only hard things at the start.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, that end bit of Ingleborough wasn't.
Say that again?
That end bit of Ingleborough was something else.
The good thing is, though, by the time you get to that point, you haven't got any bloody choice.
No, you haven't. Right? No, you haven't. You can only go up.
It's like we on Sunday we were staying with some friends and we rented some rowboats. I thought, it'll be great because the kids can have a go and blah, 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 blah. And then I very quickly realised that the oars are far too heavy for the kids, and actually there's a certain technique. I'm not that I'm particularly good at it, there's a certain technique to rowing.
Otherwise, you just go round and round.
Exactly. And also the swapping of seats makes the boat do this, and then my 5-year-old was particularly unhappy about that. So what I thought would be a bit of a fun sort of pootle around in the boat was suddenly actually I'm doing the work, which is fine. But then there's friends of ours in the other boat, so we sort of go off for half an hour down the river with the tide, and then we turn around to go back, and about 5 minutes in I'm like, this is actually really... But at that point it's like, I haven't got any choice. Just got to get on with it.
Got kids in the boat, got to get back.
Get out and swim. And that's sometimes the way that the hardest thing is, you got to get started and then you just deal with it.
Yeah.
And you sort of get your head down, you go, right, let's go.
Let's finish what we've begun.
And I was stupid enough to say, last one back's buying lunch. And so at that point, the kids are like, I got 3 coxes shouting in my face. But I think you've done a lot of really great work.
Thank you.
And I think it's important that you remember that it's not the end of our support.
Yeah.
We're going to have a couple more sessions, but as I said to you when we spoke on the phone, that's also not the end of support, that I'm here and I'm available to help in whatever ways I can. But also, this is not about fixing the events and the circumstances in your life. This is about having better strategies and tools to meet those circumstances and events. And of course, that will impact them and that will help shape them. But what you've learned and what you will continue to learn, and of course, your journey will continue with different teachers and paths and things that happen. But what you've learned becomes the place from which you meet the circumstances and events of life. And that ultimately is what you can influence and what you can have an impact on. We don't know what's going to happen, but we do know the place from which you can intend to meet it.
Yeah, thank you for that. That makes a lot of sense.
Good. You're welcome, Bev.
Thanks. Well, this is my last vlog. I guess there's part of me just wants it to be this whole wrapping up, that we've had a beginning, a middle and an end to the whole process. There was part of me that wanted me to get to the end of this and my life would look, feel, whatever, very different. And to be fair and to be honest, in lots of ways, I think it is. I think there is more inner strength than there was. There's certainly a lot more awareness about how I react to things, how I deal with things, how stuck my feelings have been, which I didn't think they were. I'm away enough from the process to really realise what a gift it's been and what I really have learned. I have got lots of tools and ways of moving forward. Alex left me with 2 things to think about, was that I can do hard things, and I've realised that is true, I can. But to try and look at the world not in a lens of being a victim, but look at it realistically as much as I can. There's still lots of room for improvement. I guess, it's not like I said at the beginning, you haven't got a beginning, a middle and an end. Life isn't like that. Life is a process, journey, whatever you want to call it. It's trying to enjoy each day and the process and not thinking, I'll be happy when this happens, I'll be happy when that happens. It's something about trying to be happy now. And that's something I'm not always very good at, but I'm a work in progress.
I hope you found this week's episode helpful. You know, the challenge that Beverly was exploring in this week's episode is a very common one. We come into a process, including the therapeutic process, with an idea of what we think should be happening, of the person that we think we should be at the other side. The problem with that idealized self is we often will then feel like we're failing, because that idealized self is often not real, and it's often made up of the best of different versions of who we think we should be. And if we're always comparing ourselves against where we think we should be, as opposed to how far we've come, as opposed to the effectiveness of the work that we've really done, we're always going to feel like we're a failure and the process is not working. The therapeutic journey has different ways that it can end. Sometimes people come in with a very clear, they have this many sessions and we're going to do this amount of work in that time. Other times people can have a non-ending therapeutic process that goes on sometimes for months or even into years. One of the challenges in designing the in-therapy process was we're of course learning as we go. And we started in the early seasons with this fairly unstructured process of people would come in at different points and that they would leave at different points. But often that's not how therapy is in the real world. Often people have funding for a certain number of sessions, and that gives a certain structure and focus to how that goes. We've been realizing in the evolution of the series that having these more focused, structured therapeutic journeys actually is often a really good fit for the client, but it's also a better fit for the process. So although I'll be continuing to do a little bit of work with Beverly off camera just to make sure that she feels the right support and completion in her therapeutic work with me, this is of course the end of her participation in therapy. Now, I know that many of you will be disappointed that Beverly's journey within therapy is coming to a close, but I want to reassure you, we will be following up with her in the future. So you will hear more from Beverly of how not just this process has impacted her now, but how the tools, the lessons, the learnings, and the insights will impact her life, hopefully, for many, many years to come. I really hope you've enjoyed being part of her journey. Of course, you can rewatch all of her episodes and see, like she explored in this session, just how far she's come in that work. I'm also, though, super excited for some of the new developments in therapy which are coming. In next week's episode, we have the final episode with Sanaya, where we're going to hear some of the quite amazing changes that have been happening in her life. I look forward to talking with you then.